Meccano part number 48B from the rocking 50s. Hi, if you want even more Meccano goodness, why don't you check out my Patreon channel? And please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I post updates in the community section, not only for this week's Patreon build, but also for what I'm currently working on. Thank you, and back to the build. Hi folks, and welcome back. This is the first of the Army multi-kit set from 1972, which offers 10 separate builds. And as the title might have already told you, it's for the Armoured Scout Car. Each build has its own difficulties to write about, as does each set. Some things are rich in history, and finding a script to write is so easy. In fact, at times I have to limit what I put in the script. Others, not so. The other script that I'm writing this week is for the railway cattle truck. It was an easy build the same week as this model was built, when I really didn't have the drive for anything overly complicated. And what has happened is, while the build might have been easy, the script won't be. But I do find the challenge of the script is getting more fun, if that's the right word. It's almost like putting a jigsaw together. The challenge of when you first start with the very first part, and slowly, bit by bit, add each part until you have the finished picture, without the annoying family member who hides one piece so they get to finish the puzzle, or the person who waits until you put the last piece in and swipes the whole puzzle onto the floor as a joke. My wife was the hider of a piece, so that she got to finish the puzzle. I find the multi-kit sets a bit limiting. You only get to build one thing at a time, so as a child, if you wanted to play with the models, you had to have more than one set, which wasn't a real option for most people, and to be honest, was a waste of money. And there were so many other options when it came to playing with these as toys, as 2 years later Matchbox began to release their Battle Kings range of military vehicles. And of course we had the fabulous range of dinky military models, but they never supplied an opposing force to battle against. And the Matchbox Lesney range, which again only supplied British vehicles. And then we come to the issue of scale. This fits alongside nothing. Britain's Super Detail range is a 1/32nd scale, as is the Airfix and Matchbox range from the same period, and are completely out of scale. While Britain's also supplied a nice range of vehicles to complement the figures. Palitoy's Little Big Man, which are a range of 6-inch action figures, are closer in scale, while of course their big brother Action Man is far too big. The history of the Armoured Scout Car is an interesting one. Its role is that of reconnaissance, and it was to replace the light cavalry for the job, which is why so often the regiments retain the older definition as being cavalry regiments. Like my father-in-law, who served in the 19th Hussars post-World War II, driving amongst other things a Daimler armoured car. With the invention of the internal combustion engine, it wasn't long before someone decided to stick a gun into a vehicle, and that person was Frederick Richard Simms. Mr. Simms was a British mechanical engineer, businessman, prolific inventor, and motor industry pioneer. Amongst his many achievements, he is the reason we use the terms petrol and motor car in Great Britain and the then Commonwealth, embedding them firmly in our language when he first coined the use of them. He also founded the Royal Automobile Club, later to become the RAC that we all know and love. Well, maybe not love. Have you seen their renewal fees lately? In 1898, he created the Motor Scout by converting a two-seater quadricycle, and in doing so invented the first armed petrol engine powered vehicle ever built. I try to be respectful to my elders and betters when I write these scripts, but this thing looks like he took a Victorian pram with spoked wheels, stuck an engine in it and attached a machine gun. I'm expecting the theme tune to the A-Team to suddenly start and B.A. Baracus to appear in the form of Mr. T. I'm sorry, it has to be Mr. T. No disrespect to Quinton Jackson, but growing up in the 1970s, there will only ever be one B.A. Baracus. And somehow constructing this armoured vehicle out of junk items available in the immediate area, using a pram or lawnmower engine, armoured plate that is lying around, and an M60 machine gun. Because that's about what the original Simms Motor Scout was. It was fitted with a 1.5 horsepower engine, a Mark IV Maxim machine gun with 1,000 rounds of ammunition, and an armoured shield to protect the rider, and it had a range of 120 miles. It could be converted into a two-seater with ease, allowing it to be used for a number of roles, including casualty evacuation, so possibly the first military evac vehicle. Not satisfied with his Simms Motor Scout, he went on to design the Simms Motor War Car. The CGV 1902 and its successor, the CGV 1906, marked the beginning of armoured vehicles in the world. The CGV 1908, the production model of the aforementioned models, was accepted by the Ottoman Empire in 1909 and deployed to Turkey in that year. Still, with an unarmoured cab, the 5 vehicles saw action with the Ottoman Empire. The design was flawed in many ways, least of all the lack of protection for the driver, the person who's going to get you out of Dodge as quickly as possible, and the unarmoured engine. But they were the first of what was to follow, and looking at what was available 100 years ago, they worked. I said my father-in-law was in the 19th Hussars. He had an unlucky time in the army. Firstly, breaking his leg on an assault course while carrying a Bren gun. At the time of recuperating in hospital, the regimental photograph was taken. Minus himself, of course. A copy was duly sent to his mother, who spent ages with a magnifying glass trying to find him in vain. By the time he'd fully recovered for active duty, his unit had been sent to Palestine. Back in his position of command, as a newly promoted corporal, he was lead vehicle of 3 Humber armoured cars. His driver swung out to overtake a convoy of stopped army trucks and forgot the angle of the spare wheel that jutted out. Hitting the rearmost vehicle, he brought the Humber to a complete stop, forcing my father-in-law, who'd been standing up in the turret, looking important and rather dashing, to fold over. At the same time, the armoured hatch that opened behind the command position snapped shut, breaking 2 of his vertebrae, and leaving him in hospital again. His second regimental photograph was taken during his 6-month recovery, and a copy duly sent to his mother, again him absent from the photograph. His third deployment was in Germany, in the city of Lübeck, serving with the forces of the Boer, or the British Army of the Rhine. One night, while attending a dance, he briefly met a beautiful woman. In a moment of panic and not knowing what else to do, he bit her on the shoulder, No, it's not some strange northeastern mating ritual. Wanting to meet her again, but to say the least she wasn't impressed with the idea, he stole her ID out of her handbag while she wasn't looking, with the idea it would have her address on it. It didn't. He spent the next 3 weeks patrolling every village around Lubeck, only knowing that she lived outside the city. He said he'd driven every road through every village in his Humber, once nearly knocking over a group of elderly people after he told his driver to go left, after telling him to go right, because he thought he'd seen her. His driver flattened the bench the people were sitting on. In the end, he found her and returned the lost ID card that he'd found on the floor at the dance. They were married for nearly 46 years.